Well, it's a threatening sky that hangs over Lake Ontario at the Toronto lakefront. We're just a few hundred yards from the edge of the lake at the Canadian Exhibition Place, ready for the running of the Molson Indy Toronto. And rain is a very real possibility this afternoon. Of course, in IndyCar racing, that means the rain tires may come on, and that only equalizes the power of these awesome engines used in the IndyCar. So, hello and welcome as we continue the chase of the PPG IndyCar World Championship. And it is a spectacular fight right now. Now let's consider the points that are awarded to the drivers for their finishing positions. At the top of the order, a win is worth 20 points. If you score the most laps in the lead, you add another point to that. So as we take a look at how the points are distributed right now with Rick Mears as the points leader, you can see that any one of the top 5 drivers could jump into the lead at the end of this race. It's been this way throughout the season. Here's a most interesting graphic for you as we take a look at how, as a serial score, the points have gone from the first race at Phoenix right through today's event. But take a look at Michael Andretti. At Phoenix, he started in 20th place in the points. He's now up and running in 2nd place. Well, now, here at this race, we are talking about 3 straight weeks of racing, Derek Daly. The machines are tired, the teams are tired.
Unlike other sports like football or baseball or tennis or golf, when you come to a new event, you simply unpack the equipment. IndyCar teams have to spend over 500 man-hours preparing this equipment, and this is the most grueling part of the schedule right now. So if you have any problems, there's no time to test, really. So this time of the year benefits the well-managed and well-organized teams.
Now in the qualifying, it was Danny Sullivan put his machine on the pole. As we said, the rain, if it comes, if it's a serious factor, may equalize things. What do you think about Sullivan? What is your pick?
Sullivan was quite spectacular on the magic lap that counted for pole position. However, at certain times in athletes' career, sometimes they have this little sparkle that almost makes them invincible. I think we're seeing this sparkle in Michael Andretti right now, and I think he will be the biggest threat to Sullivan and all the competitors here this afternoon.
And Michael Andretti is very powerful in the wet, and the rain is picking up a bit. Danny Sullivan, the pole sitter, in his pit now is Gary Gerould.
Oh, you look back over the history of this race in the previous 4 years, Danny Sullivan has not won here at Toronto, but nobody in the field has a better overall finishing record. 3 times second. Last year he was 3rd. He starts now from the pole position. Rain is the last thing that Danny Sullivan wanted to see this afternoon, and that could have a great impact. He's hoping, however, that this 2nd pole that he's won in the past month can be parlayed into his 2nd victory of the season, backing up the win at Cleveland just 2 weeks ago. But it's a tremendously competitive field, and right alongside the defending Toronto champion. Our colleague Lynn St. James is in his pit.
Yes, I'm in the Andretti pit. Amongst all this technology, the computers, all the mechanical objects that it takes to win races. But it's not that really wins races. It's the human factor. Yes, Mario and Michael have again qualified next to each other on the grid, but I found out that Michael's car was really not set up in qualifying the way the team and the way he wanted it, but he still almost took the pole, had the pole until the last 2 minutes of qualifying. Why? Because of confidence. He has the confidence in himself, the team is giving him the confidence, his father's even giving him the support. It's called harmony, and harmony is speed. And Paul, we're going to watch that today.
And when you add the factor of the rain, well, there's the very real possibility that it'll be even quicker yet. Remember that Michael Andretti is devilishly fast in the rain, but so, of course, is Emerson Fittipaldi. You can see the umbrellas are out. Many of the cars, Allensers Jr.'s right there closest to us, has rain tires on, as does Sullivan's. Little Al being strapped into his cockpit. And despite the weather here today, which only in the past few minutes has the rain really started to fall, and it's not that hard yet. Look at the crowd here. Over 150,000 annually attend this event, and as a result of that, this race, the Molson Indy Toronto, has become the largest single-day spectator sporting event in Canada. So now not only in the world with Indianapolis, now in Canada it begins to make its mark, and of course they look forward to racing not only here today but later on in the year at Vancouver.
A point we could make about making a decision on tires, 2-car teams, of course, if they're undecided whether it's wet or dry, could put 1 car on wet, 1 car on dry, hedge their bets and be covered for both circumstances. 1-car teams like Lyondike, who we saw win the 500, of course does not have this luxury.
Well, it's a time of great tension down on the starting grid. The cars all placed out on the turn that really is the pit straight here. The start-finish line actually crosses the road at a point in which the cars are very definitely turning, heading down for the first scheduled corner on the course. And the decision making has to go on now. Now, at the moment, you can see the moisture on the pavement. It's very definitely wet enough at this moment for them to start on the rain tires, but still some people might gamble and start on dry, Derek.
I think they'll make that decision right up just before the gentlemen start your engines is announced. But what we can see at the moment, everybody is running for the safe bet, which is the wet tire choice.
Now, CART has a set of rules that stipulates how they will act in both a wet and dry start. At the drivers' meeting this morning, Mario Andretti stood up and said, look, why don't you just let us choose what we need to start on, forget that kind of different bureaucratic concerns. And Wally Dallenbach, the chief steward's answer was, hey, if that's what you guys want, we'll do it that way. 103 laps of the scheduled distance here today, 11 turns. Purse is a lot of money, and those, by the way, are dollars US. Defending champion Michael Andretti in a race that always seems to produce the unusual. And look at the crowd. The stands here are absolutely jammed. Rookies, first time ever at this race. That's a fairly impressive list. Eddie Cheever at the top, Willie Ribbs making a start as well. All of these drivers extraordinarily skillful as they come to make their mark in the Indy cars. Wait now, tremendous ceremonies despite the overcast and the rain. We've had parachutists come in, we've had daytime fireworks, and we're moving down to that moment. They have an unusual way that they want to try and get the engine started here today. They're looking for crowd involvement. They've been practicing with this crowd. Crowd seems to enjoy it. And they have their cue cards out for different sections of the grandstand. It's an important day here because there's some of the gals with the cue cards now. This is the 5th anniversary of this race. So all around the track, the cue cards are spread. Who knows how this is going to work, Derek Daly, but they're going to give it a shot.
One way or the other in a couple of seconds.
Your engines!
Well, that was it.
And they better get out of the way because the Indy cars are ready to go. Set. We'll take a look up and down the line. The front row on wets, second row sits on wets. I don't see any dry tires back through the front of the field, and I would say that that's a good judgment because you can see there is a sheen to the pavement, and that pavement is just wet enough to, for the moment at least, handle up the rain tire. So we're ready to go racing in Toronto. We'll be back with the grid and the start right after this. Well, all of the cars answered the crowd's call to start their engines, and they're moving. You can see as we take a look at this surface that it is very wet here in Toronto. Though for the moment, the rain seems to have abated. We've pointed out everyone started on wets or rain tires, what we call wets. So now's an opportunity as they circulate around this track, setting up for the start, to take a look at the starting grid here in Toronto. The Sears Die-Hard starting grid is brought to you by the Die-Hard battery, now with more power when you need it most. On the front row, the pole is Danny Sullivan. 3 times he's been a bridesmaid here in 4 runnings of the race. Outside Michael Andretti, he's won 3 of the last 4 IndyCar events, all of those wins on road courses. The second row, the inside, Mario Andretti. He came home 3rd here in '86, but he hasn't finished here since. And Bobby Rahal, the winner of the inaugural running in the Molson Indy Toronto in 1986. The third row, inside tail Bobby. He's coming off a strong 3rd place finish at the Meadowlands in the Porsche last week. And Rick Mears to the outside, the current point leader. The 4th row on the inside, Emerson Fittipaldi, the winner of this event back in 1987. And Al Unser Jr., who led all but 18 laps when he won here 2 years ago. The 5th row on the inside, the Indianapolis 500 champion, Arie Luyendyk. And to the outside of that row, John Andretti in the Porsche. He finished 5th and 7th in the 2 most recent IndyCar races at Cleveland and the Meadowlands. We take a look down through the rest of the field. Jan Beekes with a great qualifying effort here. There's Eddie Cheever as well, looking very strong. Willie T. Ribbs will be starting. And one of the cars, that's Boesel, with a problem now rolling away on the course. So we may get a delayed start here. And as we look all the way back through the field now, starting all alone in the last row will be A.J. Foyt. His qualifying time was disallowed. The officials of CART said that he failed to present his car for technical inspection after the qualifying run. He was given no time and moved to the back of the field.
We're going to watch special attention. I give special attention to Eddie Cheever here during this wet start, because in the final session he was actually 4th fastest. In fact, he was faster than he even qualified.
One of our onboard cameras there, we just should mention, this is the Canadian in the race, Scott Goodyear. He's had a spectacular season, and we'll probably see a great deal of him today.
Just to get back to Cheever, he has had some quite spectacular races in Europe in the rain. He does like the rain. Very few drivers would actually admit to that, but he does like the rain. I think he will be looking forward to this start right now.
All right, they continue to work their way around. Here's the lineup of chassis ready to take a start in this race. You think about the rain drivers here too. You have to certainly consider Emerson Fittipaldi and certainly Michael, who is very powerful in the rain. Engines in this race, Chevrolet dominates, and we are set to go as the field comes down, threads their way through, and we look to see if Nick Finoro, the CART starter, will give him a green flag, and he says no. Not good enough, not lined up. You don't want to take a chance in the rain, so he'll send him around one more time.
It's such a difficult decision for Nick Finoro whether to give that green flag, because they really come around that last turn just so fast up to the starter stand. But Nick Finoro, probably one of the most experienced starters that we have in racing today, decides it is not correct. Michael had the jump, so we got to do it one more time.
You can see as we look over Al Unser Jr.'s shoulder, the drops of water, the spray from the cars in front of him. It's very wet out there now.
And remember, that's our camera lens. Exactly the same drops of water fall on Al Unser Jr.'s visor, helmet visor. So the further back you get on the grid, the more water you get, the more spray you get, the more difficult it becomes. The leaders, particularly the leader of the race, has a major advantage at the start of wet races.
We mentioned Nick Finoro, the starter, a longtime racer. Everyone up and down the East Coast knows the name Finoro, and especially Nick. So the whole family's involved in racing, and that's a tough decision, by the way, for him with the wet track. There's Nicky now. He's got to be very careful to make sure that he doesn't hold that flag too long and cause an accordion effect and thereby another accident.
Well, that's right, and luckily Nick has years of experience, and all the drivers have total confidence in him. Here's Michael Andretti's in-car camera. No cars in front of him. Notice very little spray. There was on Unser Juniors. So the leaders do have an advantage, as we see just by our in-car cameras.
Over on the backside now, the field coming once again back to alignment. Difficult job here because, as I mentioned earlier, the pit straight has a curve in it. In fact, a very, very fast curve. And so they don't come into view of either the crews or the starter until just at the last second. The front 3 rows look pretty well aligned as they'll head for that curve now, and we do have a green flag. And Michael Andretti runs Sullivan down into the first corner. Mario jumps into 3rd place, then Ray Hall. And then the Porsche of Teo Fabi, then Rick Mears, then Emerson Fittipaldi.
Michael did take full advantage. He had the better start, did get the jump on Sullivan, and now he has the clear road. There's Cheever.
The rest of the field comes through safely. But Michael has the advantage of clear sailing ahead, and you can see right there, that's exactly what you were talking about, Derek.
That's exactly. Now, 2nd place is Mario. His dad follows him through the 2nd place. So the Andretti family have control right now. Look at Ray Hall. Ray Hall running well up to 3rd place. So Sullivan has lost 4 places, and we're not even through the first lap yet.
He was back from Michael to his dad. On board now as Michael leads the lap, perhaps one of the very few clear views that we're going to get, unless the light shower that's moving through here picks up. That doesn't seem to be likely.
Nice clear track, very delicate throttle control, essential, because the turbochargers, when they kick in, they can kick in 700 horsepower. And on wet pavement, that is a very difficult proposition for the driver to handle. So delicacy, delicate control, throttle and brakes is what's necessary right now.
There's Danny Sullivan, started on the pole, has fallen back a bit now.
See how slowly Sullivan moves through these turns. Doesn't want to get the car on the line. The front runners are really pulling away right now, so I don't think Sullivan's car, although he was spectacular. We see a little bobble right there. He was spectacular in the dry. This car is not set up for the wet.
And there goes Teo Fabi as he comes to the inside in the Porsche. Another driver who should be very skillful on the wet. And he picks up the position. This is the 4th time in the last 5 races that Michael Andretti has led on the opening lap. And he pulls away a bit from his father, though wisely Mario sits a little bit off Michael's line and tries to stay out of his spray. Then comes Rahal. Nice battle between Fittipaldi now and Teo Fabi. Alonso Jr. moves in, comes around Sullivan, and comes in behind Fittipaldi.
Here we're back with Alonso Jr. This is the water spray that's on his helmet also. Very difficult to see. Of course, our camera lens will change and clear, but that doesn't happen on the driver's helmet. It has to be cleared with the wind, the movement of the wind, and then the buffeting.
We mentioned Eddie Cheever. He started in 13th place in these first laps. He is already up and moving in 8th place, so Eddie Cheever is on the fly.
Teo Fabi in this Porsche, very, very experienced with racing in the wet. I think the European drivers possibly have more experience racing in the rain than the Americans.
Take a look right in front of Sullivan, the pole sitter. Just in front of him, you got a glimpse of the target car. That is Eddie Cheever, so he's carving his way up through this field. When you look at the back end of the cars, you will also notice a red light. Remember, that is not a brake light. It is simply a running light, a marker light. So if you do get into a spray situation, it lets you following a car know what's up there, right?
And it is absolutely essential that that rain light is on. Wally Dolomite will take you off the racetrack if the rain light is not on, because sometimes that's the first thing you see when you come through the spray.
Back on board with Alonso Jr. He closes in now on the Teo Fabi machine. Coming right the inside. A braking maneuver here.
That's right. We're not sure. In fact, it's very, very hard. Look at the Marlboro car ahead of him. That looks like Sullivan, maybe Emerson, but these cars try to get away. It is Emerson Fittipaldi. But now Unser Jr. goes to the outside. Emerson's down the inside.
Keep an eye on little Al's right hand and listen to the gear shift. In fact, we'll just be quiet so you can do that when we come back to an onboard camera, because when they get around this course, they try to be gentle. He doesn't shift all that much.
Michael Greenfield, our first spinner of the day.
Up against the barrier, but it doesn't, you can't really tell if there was any damage to the car. Looks like they just may have been the back end get loose there. Michael now trying to make his way.
Luckily, he has kept the engine running, so in fact, they can just pull him back. I don't know whether he had reverse gear in that. We saw a reverse gear problem at Tony Bettenhausen a couple of races ago. But Michael Greenfield, our first spinner, but no damage.
The rules do require you to carry reverse. There's Mario working his way around as he chases Michael.
Michael in control here, very delicate. Here's Emerson, very much on the move. Al Jr. still behind Emerson, and there's Eddie Cheever. Still Eddie Cheever moving up.
So the tactics and the skill of the driver will really play in this race here at Toronto. 78 miles an hour was Michael's first lap, almost 30 miles an hour slower than his qualifying speed. That, of course, owing to the rain. Michael is out in front. He's being chased by his father. We'll be back. We're back in Toronto. The race continues, and it is Michael Andretti that stays out in front. There's the pole sitter, Danny Sullivan, who has come up the big number 7 car. His teammate Rick Mears is just behind him, and you get an idea when you look at the backs of these cars as they move around the corners and watch them kick out how slick it really is out there. Very difficult driving. Here is Jeff Wood as he closed down on Scott Goodyear, and Goodyear, I think, got on the brakes a little bit early for Jeff's pleasure.
That's right. Jeff was not able to stop. Locked up those rear brakes, had a spin, a harmless spin at the end of that back straight into turn 2.
Michael Greenfield, of course, had his incidents as well and got started back on the course and running now. Continue to watch this inter-team battle between Danny Sullivan and Rick Mears.
Now here's 2 cars that were very well set up for the dry conditions. Now they're running 9th and 10th. Both cars have moved way, way back because of this very wet condition. A car needs to be totally differently set up to handle the wet than the dry. It needs to be much softer. Sometimes a bad handling car in the dry is very, very good in the wet.
On board with Scott Goodyear, who has had a most successful season, currently running in 16th place, and of course is the focus of this crowd because he is Canadian and is from this area here. Good run.
He sees the yellow flag.
One car off the course that I got a glimpse of it. You think it was Willie? Yep, that's what it is.
Willie T. Ribbs. This is the Rayner car. First time here for Willie. And that looks like definitely the end of his day.
He was running 14th. He got the wall with both ends of the car. A lot of damage there. So Ribbs climbs out of the car, runs across the track, and they have vehicles out on the course. That should bring out a full course yellow. I don't expect the kart officials are going to take any chance at all in the wet and try to run them through that area, and we are in fact on a full course yellow now.
And of course, one of the main reasons they would go full course yellow is he is stopped right on the racing line, so it's a very, very unsafe position. There's no way the corner workers can manually move that car. They will have to get a tow vehicle.
Well, in this race, as in every kart race, Goodyear sponsors on ESPN. Goodyear will be sending a check for $1,000 to Cara, the Championship Auto Racing Auxiliary. Double yellow flags at the start-finish line and yellow all the way around the course says the pace car with Johnny Rutherford at the wheel will come out, slow the field down and get it under control so they can get the debris off of the course from the accident involving Willie Ribbs, who was not injured. Let's go to the pits. Lynn St. James.
Yes, Paul, as Derek was talking about the different setups for the rain, besides putting rain tires on, the other thing they could actually do right out on the grid was to change the aerodynamics of the car, to put more downforce. How they do that is on the front wing, they just crank, in this particular Haval and Lola, you crank the wing down so that you've got more downforce on the front of the car. The other place they can do that is the rear of the car. Here with this gurney lip, or sometimes called a wicker, they can put a larger one on so that it creates more downforce of the rear car. That gives the car more stability in the wet. So I know a lot of teams, and particularly the Andretti teams, did that out on the grid today.
They may use the opportunity, this full course yellow, to come into the pits and make some changes as now they line up behind the pace car and we are slowed here. It is with some sadness that we report that IndyCar driver, five-time USAC midget champion, 1980 USAC sprint champion Rich Vogler was killed in a race at Salem, Indiana on Saturday night. Rich brought much joy to racing fans with his incredible driving skills. The fatal accident occurred while Rich was leading the final lap of the race, and he was awarded the win. Like racers everywhere, he understood and accepted the risks of racing. Rich Vogler died the way he lived, as a champion. The yellow out because of Willie Ribbs, who bounced off the wall twice. He's not injured. It's his fourth IndyCar start. He has yet to finish an IndyCar race, and Derek, that might have an impact on the team. That much damage to that car.
Well, that's right. This team is struggling to put together the proper financial package to give Willie T. Ribbs the type of equipment he needs. So it was a bad day today for Rayner and Willie T.
Johnny Bettenhausen comes into the pits. They top it off with fuel, make some changes.
In fact, the wing changes they made was exactly what Lynn St. James pointed out to us. The mechanic went to the front of the car, turned that little necessary screw, and that gives the front wing more downforce, helps the car turn in these wet conditions.
The field lining up now with one more lap to go as they come back to the green flag. Here's the way they line up now. Michael Mario, Bobby Ray Hall, Fittipaldi, Al Unser Jr., Eddie Cheever with a spectacular run. Teo Fabi's in there fighting as well. Ari Leyendyke is on the roll, and Danny Sullivan falling steadily backwards. Rick Mears is in 10th. 103 laps the scheduled distance there. 12 are complete, most of those now under the yellow. You ride on board with Al Unser Jr., and he's getting very damp out there. You mentioned his tearaways.
Yes, normally in a dry condition, the driver's helmet, the visor, they cover with a couple of tearaways. What these are very lightweight, flimsy, see-through pieces that the driver can peel away halfway through the race when the oil smears and dust and dirt or whatever else gathers on the helmet. That's like giving him a complete clear windshield again. The problem is, in the wet, the water seeps down behind these little tear-offs and causes blurred vision. Some of the drivers have them on here, but Al Unser Jr. elected not to have any tear-offs.
And And every driver has his little trick in the rain. Some may have like a chamois stitched on the back of a glove. There are all kinds of tricks, and it's very personal as to what there you see Allenser Jr. uses his glove to wipe off his visor without any tearaways on it. But everybody's got their way. It's also a problem on the inside. The mask will fog. Let's go down to the pits. Gary Gerould is in the Penske pit.
Paul, Richard Buck is alongside. He is, of course, on the crew for Rick Mears, and we've talked about wet versus dry setups from the booth. It appears that the Penske setup was for dry conditions. How much of a disadvantage are you at?
Right now, we're fighting in two handling characteristics. In the slow stuff, Rick says he's having a hard time putting the power down. The back end of the car is real squirrely, and yet in the high-speed stuff, the front end's pushing out and washing out on him. So we're looking at getting in and maybe making some air pressure adjustments on the tires on the next pit stop that should help him a lot. He's adjusting everything in the cockpit that he can do right now to help.
And we've got the green back, so let's quickly get back to Paul Page.
Rick Mears had fallen from 6th to 10th in the early laps. Michael Andretti still in front. Bobby Rahal comes up to challenge Mario Andretti. There's Fittipaldi. Eddie Cheever puts a challenge on Allenser Jr. Not much of one, though. He decides to come into line.
And we got such a good view of the spray that Michael Andretti, and as the cars progress back, create for the drivers following behind. Michael has such an advantage right now leading this race.
We had some rain here in Toronto on Friday. It covered over the first practice session. Some of the teams didn't go out and practice during that. There comes Eddie Cheever through, then Teo Fabi, and then Arie Luyendyk. And one car spins around. That is Lewis. Everybody gets by clean. So, Derek, if you had a chance to practice and actually took it in the lane, let's take a look at this is Randy Lewis's problem.
Down inside Guido Dacco, and it looks as if he put too much power on too soon. Rear wheels let up, and he had a simple 180 spin. Of course, the difficulty is in a street circuit is actually getting back around again to get on your way. We saw Lewis have to come backwards through that corner.
And here comes Allenser Jr. as he moves alongside Emerson Fittipaldi and picks up the position coming into the first turn there by the Princess Gate. And so Allenser Jr. forges ahead.
Notice how the passes are almost made in slow motion. It's so delicate. You move out very gently. You get on the brakes very gently. You move alongside the driver. You're passing very gently. It almost looks like slow motion. Look at that spray.
Allenser Jr. now chases Rahal, running in 4th place. The leader of the race is still Michael, followed by his father, Bobby Rahal, then the number 5 car, the Valvoline machine, Allenser Jr.
There's Eddie Cheever chasing Emerson Fittipaldi. I think Cheever is going to mount a challenge to Fittipaldi very soon because Cheever, we mentioned earlier on, likes racing in the wet.
Dean Hall, the number 19 inside car, in and out of the pits rather quickly. This is an onboard view looking backward from Bobby Rahal.
Of course, this is the teammates' car. Now, interesting, teammates, sometimes they like their car a little bit differently set up. Unser Jr. predominantly likes his car a little bit softer. Softer cars are better in the wet. Maybe Allenser Jr. has a slightly better setup than Rahal. We're going to watch him try and take that 3rd place away.
Derek, what's the best philosophy of the wet? You see here's Allenser Jr. He stays off of Rahal's line, comes down inside him, and Allenser Jr. picks up 3rd. But Bobby Rahal's not going to give up. He's got his nose tucked right back in here. Nice battle for 3rd place, and it continues.
Very, very good battle. We saw Al Jr. do exactly the same move as he put on Fittipaldi. Gently moved out, braked a little bit later, and just slithered down the inside to take away that 3rd place. So Allenser Jr. looks very strong. We're still watching for Cheever, though, because he hasn't made that move on Emerson that we expect.
Keep an eye, too, on the racing lines they use. It would not be the same line that you use in the wet.
Well, that's right. And of course, some drivers find different lines. Sometimes the normal line that you use on a corner, because everybody races on it during the dry, gets a lot of rubber, sometimes a lot of oil. Now, when rain falls on oil, of course, it gets very slick. So sometimes a wider outside line is a better line to use. And in fact, I saw Cheever use a wider outside line and Fabi earlier on in the race.
So Allenser Jr. now chasing Mario Andretti, and you can see he's definitely closing in, but from time to time, watch that car as well as all of these cars skate. It is very slippery. In the rain in a race car, it's very much like driving on ice.
It really is, and it's a long, long, long event not to make the slightest mistake. The slightest mistake can end your day very, very quickly. But Allenser Jr., another thing that he'll do, and that most of the drivers do, will short shift. You short shift early, the car has less of a chance to spin those rear wheels and less of a chance for the rear end to break away. Look at the gap he's pulled on Rahal in just 1 lap, almost 2.5 seconds.
Al Unser Jr. clearly the fastest man on the circuit. There you get a shot of Fittipaldi, followed by Cheever, followed by Fabi, and then Arie Luyendyk.
Teo Fabi running in 7th place, watching what's going on here with Eddie Cheever. He knows Eddie Cheever's lines. He knows how he drives. They've raced many, many, many times together in Europe, so he's quite content just to look back and see what's happening right now.
On board with Al Unser Jr. as he runs in 3rd place. Now, Little Al, there's been a great deal of speculation about this man. And the speculation is, what will happen to him next year? Will he run in Formula One? Al Unser Jr. today announced a new 3-year deal with Gallus Crago Racing, and we asked him about those rumors of Formula One.
I'm just very happy in kart. You know, I don't want to say I'm never ever going to go into F1 because you know, I believe that in order for me to be the best that I can be, I need to be able to drive all types of race cars, and I've never raced an F1 car, and so someday I'd like to still do it, but the timing's not right now, and I feel very comfortable about the next 3 years in kart. I feel that their kart's just going to get better and better, and so we did it.
Well, while Al Unser Jr. told us about his plans, he's gone straight through past both Andretti's and now leads this race. Al Unser Jr. is now number 1.
So Al Unser Jr. is out in front with a spectacular move across the front of both of the Andrettis. We'll be back with more. Well, this is the official order of the run right now after 18 laps. In the murkiness there, we saw Little Al on board get around one car. That was Mario. He did not get around Michael Andretti. He now runs in 2nd place, chasing Michael Andretti. And one car off to the side, that's Guido Dacco. Looks like he took a slide out to the wall and is back under power once again. Very difficult conditions for these IndyCar drivers. Dacco under power. Michael Andretti still has the advantage of generally running unencumbered. That is to say, no one directly in front of him for any length of time. So he has a fairly clear run, and that works to his advantage.
That's right, and here we see him come down here. Look at the center of the road that everybody's using, clearing that water away. But Al Unser Jr. looks to be catching Michael Andretti.
Al Unser Jr., there he comes around the corner in pursuit of this man, the Kmart Haviland machine of Michael Andretti. So now we know Al Unser Jr.'s plans for the next 3 years at least. He stays in the Indy cars and stays with his good friend Rick Gallus.
We heard him say, of course, that he likes to be good in every form of racing. Unfortunately, racing is so specialized, he's now committed himself to IndyCar racing. He wanted to see, could he mix maybe Formula One and do the Indy 500? You can't do that. If you do Formula One, it's a total commitment. It's the only way to do it. So Al Unser Jr. has chosen not to make that commitment, to stay exactly where he is. And I'm sure the IndyCar fans will be glad of that, because IndyCar racing without Unsers would be very unusual.
The question, of course, is Michael Andretti now, because there's been a lot of talk revolving around him leaving the Indy cars and heading off. The most likely position seems to be a seated Ferrari.
Well, that's right, and of course Mario, his dad, drove for Ferrari and was so spectacular in his years there. But we'll have to wait and see. I think Michael has all the tools and all the ingredients necessary to be successful in Formula One. I think it'd be great for American racing too.
Michael Andretti threads his way through traffic past Michael Greenfield, almost opposite lock there for a second. We look back from him. We talked to Michael Andretti before this race. We asked him, is it frustrating to run in the rain and not be able to use all of the power that is available to you?
No, it's not frustrating. It's just something you have to adapt to. You know, you can only give put the throttle down so hard, you know, and you just have to. That's really the key in the rain, is just trying to constantly keep power going down to the road and not getting wheel spin. So you do a lot of playing with the throttle.
Michael Andretti in front, but closing in is this car, the number 5 car of Al Unser Jr. The 42 cars, Michael Greenfield, it is not a factor in this run.
Adapt was a great word that Michael used there. You must adapt to changing situations. We're wet right now, but oftentimes it goes wet, dry, wet in race situations. So adapt is the perfect word that Michael used right there.
As we mentioned at the starting, not only do we have a great race here in Toronto, and by the way, the rain falls just a little bit harder now, but we also have a tremendous points fight in the IndyCar World Series, and with Rick Mears now slipping to 12th place at the moment, if they would finish right now, Michael Andretti would move into the PPG points lead with the victory in this run. He's certainly dominating the race, but Al Unser Jr. is up there trying to challenge.
We're back now with Teo Fabi, Emerson Fittipaldi, and Ari Leinbach. We had a quick look at them, but we're back here with Michael Andretti looking over his shoulder again. There's the rain. There's the rain spots, exactly what falls on his visor. So it gives you a really, really good idea of exactly the difficulties the drivers have driving in the rain. We're practically right inside his helmet visor right now.
Let's go now down to the target pits. Eddie Cheever's car. Gary Gerould is there.
Well, indeed, Tom Anderson, who calls the shots for the Chip Ganassi Racing Team, and Eddie Cheever methodically moving his way up under these conditions. How much of an advantage do you think you may have with your driver's skills in the rain?
Oh, I think he's one of the two best out there. The problem, Gary, is nobody saw the rain coming early, so most of the spring changes and tire changes were made on the grid. Everybody's out there's got a partial setup for the rain right now, so it's sort of who guessed right when we're on the grid.
Is there any other reconnaissance weather-wise available? Do you have any inside word on forecasts or what may happen in the next hour?
Some of the private pilots around that are in constant touch with the Toronto airport, and it looks like it's going to stay about like this the rest of the day.
Wish you well. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Ari Leinbach with a challenge on Emerson Fittipaldi. They have been battling for the past several corners. Now Leinbach holds off just a bit. This is a battle for 7th place, currently held by Fittipaldi. Let's see, watch this just a little bit further. Here comes Fittipaldi. This is the fastest part of the circuit, up to about 185 miles an hour in this area. Leinbach moves just a little bit off the line, try and get a clear view. No, he will not challenge Fittipaldi. The fight continues in Toronto. We'll be back with more right after this. This Track Fact is brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is one tough motor oil. Here's Gary Gerould.
It might be easy to think that all of the preparation for a racing event is done on site once the car gets to the track, but actually there's a tremendous amount of work that goes on prior to the event at the shops. For instance, since the last race for Team Penske, the cars of Mears, Fittipaldi, and Sullivan have been thoroughly broken down to the most minute detail. All of the suspension pieces are taken out and checked for any signs of stress failure or fatigue or any minute cracks. They take out the radiators, they pressure check them and thoroughly clean them. Same with the intercooler here in the left side pod. All of the hoses, all of the clamps, all the connections in the plumbing taken out and replaced. The engine itself comes out. 110 man-hours going into freshening the engine up and all of the many pieces within it before it's dyno checked and made race ready. At the rear of the car, all of the pieces of the drivetrain. Back in here, the ring and pinion, the gearbox taken out, the half shafts, the CV joints, the brake assemblies, all of the suspension parts and the uprights on every corner of the car totally gone through. A checklist of some 300 items. Takes more than 200 man-hours to make one of these cars race ready once again.
Back on the course on board with second place Al Unser Jr. He continues his chase of Michael Andretti. Puts you in memory of the Marlboro Challenge back in Miami in 1988 when these two battled there in the rain, a constantly changing race. Finally won at that time by Michael Andretti, but not after a desperate move on the penultimate lap when little Al tried to come past him, hit a puddle on the course and went head on into the wall. He was uninjured, but it made for one spectacular race. By the way, Ari Leinbach was able to get past Emerson Fittipaldi and pick up 7th place.
But this is where the action is right now. We're looking back from Michael Andretti's car. We're inside with Al Unser Jr. The cars seem to be fairly even except under braking. We saw Unser Jr. make up 2 places earlier on in front of the pit straight under braking. At the end of the back straight, he can brake later than Michael. That's where he's making up his time. But unfortunately, he's got to be very close to try and make a pass.
Shelley Unser watches nervously. They keep track of her husband's progress. He's part of the scoring team. up in the Gallus Craco pit area, and look at little Al. Is he going to do it here? They come down to the very first turn. No.
Okay,
that's in line.
That's his favorite place right there. We've seen him make 2 spectacular passes earlier on. Oh, look at Michael Andretti get sideways. Has that power on. The rear end breaks away. Now Al Jr. will have a good run down this back straight.
Al Unser Jr. comes to the outside, pulls along Michael Andretti, a fight for the lead. They're side by side. It'll be determined under braking, but there has been trouble here in races in the past. They get through smoothly, and Al Unser Jr. picks up the lead. Nice bit of driving for both drivers.
Al Jr. is so difficult to pass in a situation like that, and we knew his car was good under braking, but Michael is very brave and very difficult to give up the line, but he did. I think it was the correct thing, because we still have 2 cars on the racetrack instead of just 1.
Boy, that was wonderful, though, to get out there on the outside and be able to go out there, have the courage to do so. Here is Eddie Cheever as he chases Bobby Rahal. This is a fight for 4th place. Back to the front of the field.
But remember where the pass started, at the top of the straight when Michael Andretti got sideways. That's when the whole thing started.
And it's just that kind of small mistake that makes a world of difference at any time, but especially in the wet.
And of course, it's so difficult to call it a mistake. I wouldn't say it is a mistake. It was Michael trying to use every piece of power he had, and the rear wheel just broke traction.
Now Al Unser Jr. is able to separate himself and pull away just a bit. That's Pancho Carter that they have managed to put between 1st and 2nd place. Pancho wisely comes to the inside and allows Michael Andretti in the Kmart car to continue his pursuit.
Of course, now Michael has to come through the spray given off by the cars ahead. And look how much Al Jr. has pulled away. Almost a full second, in fact, a little bit more, just in 1 lap. So Al Jr. has a much better setup for the wet than Michael has right now.
In the pits, too, I'm sure that the tactics are being carefully considered. Pit stop would normally be scheduled about 35, 37 laps into this race. We've had a full course yellow flag. We're really running slower. Look at this fight now. There is Bobby Rahal trying to hold off Cheever as they thread their way past Dean Hall and Randy Lewis. And Cheever is right there, right at the back door.
Cheever still very much on the move. Watching what Rahal is doing. Rahal still running in that 4th place right now, but Cheever has been the man on the move right from the start of this race, and let's just see what's going to happen.
So in the pits, they're probably trying to anticipate what they will do when they stop, and in fact trying to decide when they will stop after 25 laps. Here's the summary to this point as we take a look at Jeff Wood's car sitting over off the edge of the course. Michael Andretti led right up until Al Unser Jr.'s pass just a few laps ago. We've had 1 full course caution. Cars on the lead lap right now, 17. So we continue to have a good fight here. Al Unser Jr. is looking spectacular, but he's being chased by a very aggressive Michael Andretti now.
Now he's in lap traffic, something he has to be very careful of. Here's Jeff Wood. They wave the yellow flag. They need Jeff Wood out of there. Here's back to Mario Andretti. Mario still running a conservative 3rd place at the moment. We haven't seen much of Mario, but he is still running very strongly, but in 3rd place.
So the lead has changed with Al Unser Jr. now in front, being chased by Michael Andretti, then Mario, and Bobby Rahal trying to hold on against Eddie Cheever. We'll be back. And Michael Andretti here in Toronto rolls into his pits. He's ready for some service. The Newman Haas team is right there. Go to work on the car. They help Michael out, throw him a towel to help get his visor clear. Change the tires and send Michael out. 14 seconds. He stops in the pits. Interesting. We were just thinking about tactics a little bit ago. Interesting tactic. They bring him in on lap number 29 and out of 2nd place. Perhaps that's because he was passed and he finally decided maybe there's a change I can make in the car, but we saw nothing particularly obvious.
Well, that's right. I was expecting maybe a wing change or something. They made no changes that we could see in the car. Just put fresh tires on. So this is a tactical move by Michael Andretti. Now look at this. He's about to lap Rick Mears. So Al Unser Jr. about to lap Rick Mears, who's still running in 10th place right now.
So Al Unser Jr. moves his way up through this field. Rick sits just in front, and because of his positioning now with a great deal of traffic in front of him, he will have to tiptoe his way through this field. You really have to anticipate what the other driver is doing. And Rick Mears, that he moves past, Rick Mears was running in 14th position and now goes a lap down.
The drivers do have rear view mirrors on these cars, but in such conditions like this, they get wet, they get dirty. It's very very difficult to see out of those rear view mirrors. So Al Jr. has to make sure that the lap traffic can see him.
Al Unser Jr. clear for the moment. The kart safety team over there going to help out Jeff Wood's car, get him back rolling again. At least get him back to the pits. So it didn't look like he was in a good position. Remember, that was the very place on the track that they abandoned the Alfa Romeo last year, and it was struck by Mario Andretti. By the way, you may have noticed in the grid that we did not mention Roberto Guerrero or the Alfa team as being here, and the reason for that is they decided not to run this race. They, of course, are waiting for a new car at Patrick Racing International. They had their problems in the practice at the Meadowlands, and so this third week was just a little too much for them. They decided to sit it out at home.
Al Jr. putting a lap on Scott Goodyear, the local hometown favorite here in that McKenzie car. Scott Goodyear, who really has done quite a good job this year in his rookie season of IndyCar racing, but now learning the ropes for a lap or two, trying to follow Al Jr. And that's Al Jr. ahead of him, just turning into turn one.
They come through the first turn, the beautiful Princess Gate on board with Scott Goodyear. Let's get an update on the Andretti situation. Here's Lynn St. James.
Pit, and I've talked to a representative from the team, and it seems there was a miscommunication. They were not expecting him in, but Michael came in, they cleaned his visor, they did a full stop, they put a full load of fuel in, which was probably 38 gallons, and they put a fresh set of tires on, but it was not an expected stop.
And during the stop, Michael fell to 5th place, so that could be very costly.
That's right. Like we said before, I expected a chassis change, but there must be nothing they can do on that car that would help the situation. So possibly the springs or the shocks may not quite suit the conditions that he needs for this race.
31 laps now complete by the leader, Al Unser Jr. And there is Mario Andretti. Mario, of course, runs in 2nd place now, and his job is to try and catch Al Unser Jr. But for the moment, he has his hands full trying to get around Michael Greenfield. Michael finally waves him to the inside, and Mario continues his pursuit.
Of course, what Team Newman-Haas will be looking at now is the condition of Michael's tires. They know he did 20-something laps. They'll have a look at his tires, see the wear rate. Now they can make a decision on when is the best time to take Mario in, which helps Mario make the decision, because ultimately it's up to the driver as to how he feels. So the team can now monitor these tires a lot more because they have Michael set to look at.
Once again, the ongoing advantage of a multiple car team. Penske, of course, with 3 cars, Fittipaldi, Sullivan, and Mears has an even greater advantage. And the other advantage that the Penske organization would seem to have would be that they also have direct telemetry with their cars and can tell a great deal about what the chassis is doing so that they can anticipate a change.
Watching Guido Dacco being passed here by Mario. In fact, Mario tries to slide down the inside. In fact, decided that, no, in fact, the reason he didn't make the pass, it was under a yellow flag situation. That is a regulation. Under yellow flags, you cannot make a pass. So Mario had to back off and wait for Guido Dacco, wait to get through that yellow flag situation.
Guido waits until they're through there, then he moves off the line, lets Mario pass on the inside. Safety team is still trying to get Jeff Wood rolling on this course and having a difficult time doing it.
I'm not sure whether Wally Dolomic would have called that infraction there. Sometimes he does, but in a situation like that, Mario was almost committed before he got to the yellow flag situation. However, a driver cannot take that chance because a stop and go can be so costly.
Emerson Fittipaldi, the defending PPG IndyCar World Champion, currently runs 8th. Right now, Gary Gerould is in his pit.
Interesting speculation, Paul. You're talking about how the strategy can be affected from a fuel standpoint. We've talked to a couple of different teams now speculating that this may become a 1 pit stop race, that because of the slow speed and the rain, you don't use that much fuel. You have to get 51 or 52 laps because it's a 103 lap race. On the other hand, for Emerson Fittipaldi, there's some things that they want to adjust. Remember, he had a dry setup, but they need a pit stop to do that. If they elect to make the adjustment, it becomes a 2-stop race for Emerson. So a lot of speculation going on amongst these crews right now. Will it be 1? Will it be 2?
Gary and Lynn will stay on top of that action, of course, and that will make the pit crew even that much more important. We watch Rahal being chased by Eddie Cheever as the fight for 3rd place begins to pick up. We'll be back with more from Toronto right after this. We're back in Toronto. Bobby Rahal being chased by Eddie Cheever. Cheever closed up on Rahal for a second and now has dropped back just a bit, but this is the battle for third place, and it's been a nice one. Cheever with a spectacular run. He, of course, has his new Lola available to him. He started the year in a Penske car. They finally took delivery over at Ganassi Racing of the Lola. What's interesting about it is Cheever is a rather long and lanky fellow, and he's been having some problem. He has to wear pads on the tops of his legs because he bounces up into the chassis. He's so lanky. We take a look down after 30 laps through the entire field. We've run in the rain right from the start. One change for the lead. Michael Andretti led early. Then finally Al Unser Jr. got around. Here is A.J. Foyt as he pulls into the pits. The crew is ready there. This is on lap 35. This would be on an ordinary stop, but Phil Casey, the crew chief, is saying, no, don't touch those tires. Let this alone. Fuel only.
In fact, they are changing those rear tires.
Some confusion on the Foyt stop.
Looked like they were having trouble with the visor too. His crew chief was over the wall in the cockpit trying to talk to Foyt. Foyt was saying yes and then saying no, but they were trying to clean off that visor.
The two Penske cars run together on the circuit now. Fittipaldi and Sullivan. Fittipaldi currently occupies 8th place. Sullivan, of course, started this race as the pole sitter and fell steadily backwards, but now he's engaging his teammate Fittipaldi.
I can only surmise and suggest that possibly these cars are set up a little bit too stiff. A stiff car can be very, very good for qualifying, and of course we saw Sullivan on the pole, but a soft car is what you need for the rain. And maybe the Penskes are just a little bit too stiff. Sometimes they change it on the grid. Sometimes they hope it will dry out. If it dries out, these cars will probably improve.
Well, that may explain the sense that you get from this race. That is, at least my sense is, it is rather rough. It is not a predictable corner in any case. If you're going to do well in the wet, you must be smooth. But the fact, you heard Tom Anderson talk about it earlier, the fact that they weren't able to change over to a rain setup may account for the fact that everybody is pretty choppy and just trying to keep the car going, get around these corners as best they can.
Of course, then you tax the engineers' minds by asking them to come up with the best compromise situation. You can roll in more front and rear wing. We saw Lynn show us how we can do that earlier on. Or you can make a much bigger change to change the springs. It's a risky business because you don't know how long or how much you're going to have the rain.
Al Unser Jr. upping his pace just a little bit. He is now running at about 81 mile an hour average around this course. Of course, that's about 30% off what he would normally do. On board with Al Unser Jr. again. See those numbers in the center of his steering wheel, 37.5. That would be the indication on his dash console of what they would like the fuel to read, the fuel flow to read when they come in. But of course, as Gary Gerould suggested, fuel is moving out of being a real tactical consideration here. They're making fuel running as slow as they are.
And as the race goes on, it gets more and more difficult for us to see over his shoulder because we got that dirt and mud and scum that gets on the camera lens. Remember, that's what Al Jr. has, and regularly we see drivers, we saw Al Jr. do it earlier on, they will wipe the helmet visor with the back of their glove. They hope there's no oil on the visor because that causes terrible smearing.
Arie Luyendyk has managed to get around tail Bobby and pick up 6th place. I might tell you that the coverage here is being provided as an international worldwide feed in these days of global television. So Derek, you can say hi to everyone back in Ireland.
Of course, yes, particularly to my parents, Jim and Nellie Daly, who watch all these events, a lot of them live. We are in good shape over here. If it's raining out there, we're nice and dry in
Mario's pit board. See the F29.0 every lap. They put a different number up to Mario, and what they are telling him is this is what we want your fuel flow gauge to read at this point. And if he's off that, then he knows he's got to dial back or that he's got plenty of fuel. But that is their method of confirmation. Interestingly enough, Michael didn't use that method, and it bit him real hard at Milwaukee because he ran out of fuel while leading the race. I was also saying because this is a Canadian originated worldwide feed, sometimes we don't always see exactly what we're looking for here. Obviously, they're giving some attention to the Canadian driver, Scott Goodyear, as he comes up with a very nice move on Rick Mears.
And now Rahal comes up to put a lap on Mears. Now, I wonder what's happened to Cheever. He made a very concerted effort to get down the inside of Rahal about 3 laps earlier, and now he seems to be dropping back a little bit. There's Rahal. Scott Brayton's right behind him, but Cheever has backed off the pace and dropped back a little bit.
Well, Scott Goodyear, another good run. He's really had an excellent season. You almost always find him moving around 10th place. Right now, he is running in 12th. As he got around Rick Mears, here comes Rahal through. Rahal, of course, is running in 3rd, trying to put the lap on Rick Mears.
Of course, very anxious to get by Rick just as fast as they can, because there's Cheever. There's the man in 4th place. Rahal knows he's made a break. Now he wants to capitalize. Rick moves down the inside, but Rahal just inches down now, tries to make the pass. In fact, does get by around the outside.
Rahal finally gets around Rick Mears, and when you look up in the right-hand corner of the screen, there you see Eddie Cheever. So for the moment, this battle is off, as is the fight for the lead. So we're static at the front of this field. We'll be back with more from the Toronto Molson Indy right after this. And I guess we should say that those rather scenic shots are pre-recorded. That is not the weather condition at the exhibition place in Toronto right now. It is still raining. The rain, in fact, has been rather steady. The crowd, well, they haven't moved. They came here prepared for rain. They're loving every minute of this. And it is, in fact, a wonderful tactical battle, because not only are we looking at the fight on the race course, we've seen a path for the lead, we've seen some great battling going on, but now it is becoming so very tactical, because there is the possibility from some of these cars that they could see a 1 pit stop race. And if they can do that, boy, then we're going to have a whale of a run.
That's right. But Michael Andretti, remember, our early leader, has to make 2 because he stopped so early. The reason they can do it in 1 stop possibly is these engines are use a lot less revs and they're a lot more gently driven in the wet. So there is a possibility, we have heard along pit lane, that some people may try just 1 stop.
Mario Andretti currently runs in 2nd place. Al Unser Jr. is the leader of the race. Michael Andretti, at the same time, is now beginning to thread his way down and is closing down on 4th place Eddie Cheever. This is 3rd place Bobby Rahal. Cheever is back just behind this. And look at Rahal chop at that wheel. He really has to fight. Maybe we can get an idea from time to time of what Rahal's tachometer is doing. It's that line that comes up from the left side of that display. Boy, look at Rahal fight that wheel at the back end slip.
Fights that wheel at that back end, tries to get away. Now, nobody really likes driving in the rain, but everybody had the opportunity to preview what it would be like if they had to race, because of course Friday morning, the very first practice session, it was torrential downpours of rain. But interestingly enough, very few people went out to try it. Only 8 or 9 cars went out. Perhaps everybody should have gone out because they hoped for dry conditions, not wet.
And Eddie Cheever now once again closes in on Rahal, and Cheever is right there, pulls alongside. And boy, just that quickly, Eddie Cheever is able to get past. But Rahal comes over to the inside. He is able to close down on Cheever, but Cheever, once he got past Rahal, that was a spectacular move.
Rahal is in trouble. There is something wrong with that car. Look at Mario come up the inside, or is that Michael? That is Michael. Michael who's catching Cheever. Rahal is in trouble. We don't know what it is yet, but he's way off the pace. I would say he's headed right for his pit.
We'll keep an eye on Bobby Rahal. Remember, a year ago at the Meadowlands, Rahal won in the rain, so he can be very good there. But right now, he is fighting a problem, I'm sure, on that machine, as both Cheever and then Michael Andretti coming up through the field came past, Eric.
Now we're inside.
Watch this. He may have brushed, absolutely, he brushed the wall there. I didn't notice that first time by, but when his head snapped over there, that explains the situation. The Rahal crew, by the way, is ready for him to come into the pits. He rolls in now.
In fact, I believe, yes, you can see that front suspension is bent. Look at that wishbone right behind that rear view mirror. The wishbone is bent, so I think Rahal's day is done. They can't change it, but it would take way too long.
Lynn St. James is right there.
They're changing the rear tires, but the right rear wishbone is definitely bent, the lower wishbone.
So they're
putting a rear tire back on it. I can't, yeah, they're out. They're out. I was going to say, I can't believe they put the car out on the racetrack that way, but it's bent. Alan, the crew chief, has done the engine cut, and they're taking Bobby out. Paul ball back to you. Bobby's getting out of the car right now.
Bobby Rahal climbs out of the car. We were so intent on trying to find what his tack was doing, pay attention to that, and he did tag the wall and tagged it good. And when it does that, he's bent both front and rear. That ends Bobby Rahal's day. That's not repairable.
We mentioned earlier on how a small mistake can end your day very, very quickly. We got a graphic description of Rahal just getting slightly offline, and of course there was no way to stop the car, and bang, into that wall on the right side. His day is done.
Back in the mist, Al Unser Jr. being pursued by Mario Andretti in second place, Eddie Cheever in third. There's Mario as he comes up to handle one of the Porsche cars just in front of him, threading his way up through this field. Al Unser Jr. has lapped Emerson Fittipaldi now and is closing in on Danny Sullivan. So very shortly, he has the very real possibility of putting the entire Penske team one lap off of the pace. Bobby Rahal's car heads back into the automotive building here, the only dry place on the grounds right now. And fortunately, they allow them to store and work on the cars in there, and it's going to pay off today. They'll be able to at least load that car in the dry.
Unlike NASCAR, where they take the cars behind the wall and repair them and get back out on the racetrack, IndyCar drivers only get points for the top 10 positions. There is no way or no benefit to fixing that car right now, because it would take way too long, and it's impossible to finish in the top 10 positions.
So at the top of the field, it is still Al Unser Jr. Top 12 actually pays points. Al Unser Jr. at the top of the field. Mario Andretti, then Eddie Cheever, then Michael Andretti trying to carve his way back up through. As you see Mario Andretti tiptoeing his way. And the rain is picking up. It's raining a lot heavier here in Toronto now. 44 laps are complete. And Gary Gerould mentioned the possibility. We continue to watch it. Can most of these teams run this event on a single stop? 103 laps the scheduled distance. Eddie Cheever's car is in the pits now. Here's Gary.
Eddie Cheever wiping furiously at the top of his visor and his helmet as the crew gives him fresh rain tires. He started 13th, worked his way to third. He's still got a great sense of humor. We were told of a radio conversation moments ago to Chip Ganassi, said that he was after closing on Mario Andretti, but he said the only thing I'm catching out here is a cold. 18.1 seconds as Cheever is back out into battle, and you're right, Paul, it's raining the hardest it's rained all day right now.
Eddie Cheever carefully comes out of the pits. You saw that yellow line as Danny Sullivan dials in around Cheever. That yellow line, they can get two wheels over that line. And look at this.
Teo Fabi got it all wrong, and we saw how close the confines of these racetracks are. He's not able to turn the car around. He actually had to drive back against the flow of traffic to get his car pointing the right way to get on his way.
Very carefully, Teo Fabi gets back into the action. So Eddie Cheever has made a stop. What will the leaders of this race do? We'll be back in a moment to find out. Later of the race, Al Unser Jr. making his first pit stop of the day. Lyn St. James is there.
Al brings the car down very carefully this time to make sure he gets it in his 36 by 22 square foot box here, because the pits are also very slick. They get all of the fuel in, and they're going to be able to get probably the full 38 gallons of fuel that they need to get in this 40-gallon cell. Even though they're getting much improved fuel economy, they want to make sure they still get it all in. 13.2 second stop. Absolutely an excellent stop. Everybody just seemed to be in slow motion, but orchestrated very well. Everybody's congratulating everybody in the pit. They needed this one.
Stop at 14.2, and Mario Andretti comes by, picking up the lead of the race from Al Unser Jr. So little Al falls to second, but of course Mario scheduled to stop yet.
Al Unser Jr.'s pit stop gives you an idea how happy, look at that spray, how happy he is with the handling of that car. Made no adjustments, did not even change tires. He is so happy with that car.
We're back in Toronto at the exhibition place. A race being run entirely in the rain for the IndyCars at a very tight time in the season for the points. Rick Mears had the points lead coming into this race, but any one of the top 5 competitors could move to the points lead. And at the moment, the man at the top of the order is Al Unser Jr. But at the top of the race is Mario Andretti, who just picked up the lead when Little Al came in on his 46th lap to make a stop. Now, 46 laps may not, in fact, have been nearly enough. There are 103 laps scheduled in the race. Some of the teams have been considering, could they go to the halfway point and make this a single-stop race? I think Al Unser Jr., especially when the fellow that coordinates his car, Rick Gallis, remembers a year ago when they misjudged the pit stops and perhaps cost him a win there by running him out of fuel on the course. They chose the conservative line. But Mario Andretti, typical of the Newman Haas stable, well, they're staying out. They may try and make that halfway point before stopping.
And the rain is coming down heavier and heavier with every lap. There is more standing water on the racetrack now than there has been all afternoon. I'm still surprised that Al Jr. did not change tires. We're going to watch him very carefully because even though it's very wet, tires still do wear out slightly. The edge goes off the rubber, and I'm really surprised he didn't change tires.
A couple of factors to be considered here. It is not a full race until it goes past the halfway point. Meadowlands race, remember, was shortened a year ago because of heavy rain, and the rain is in fact approaching that kind of thing now. It's the visibility that is the fear. Let's go to Lyn St. James.
Bobby, it's got to be an incredible disappointment. You were the quickest in the wet on Friday, and it's got to be slicker out here today maybe than it was on Friday, but what happened?
Yeah, I mean, you know, after Friday, I thought that it was going to be all right, but, you know, it just, the car had no grip whatsoever. We were a couple 100 pounds stiffer on the springs than Alan. Maybe that's the difference. I don't know, but absolutely, it's the worst car I've had on the rain in a long time. I mean, it just no grip whatsoever.
Well, it had to be tough because when you went out, obviously we thought it was going to be a dry track, so the only thing you could do was aero stuff and tires, but yeah. So you weren't able to have the same setup that you did on Friday.
Well, yeah, Al's been running softer all weekend, and it's obviously in the drive may not have been as good, but today it's showing it's better. And just I'm really disappointed because, like, you know, in the rain, you don't have to do anything wrong, and you can get taken out, and that's what happened today.
Really tough luck. Sorry, Bobby.
All right, Bobby Rahal was up and in contention, running as high as third, and then taken out when he ricocheted off the wall. Mario Andretti, number 6, the Kmart car. Well, he runs in the lead for the moment, but he is due to stop. We'll be back with more right after this. In Toronto, Mario Andretti, the leader of the race, rolls down toward the pits. On lap 53, Lyn St. James is there.
The crew has told Mario to be very careful because it's very slick, but I think this world champion knows that. He's on the radio with Tony Cacciali. They are going to make no tires. They're going to put fuel in, and they put more front wing in to get a little more front bite in the downforce in the front. Beyond that, there will be no other changes made to the car.
15.2
seconds stop. They got all of the fuel in. Probably can now make this one stop only and go the distance with this kind of weather.
Al Unser Jr. did come past and pick up the lead. Michael Andretti slid into third place, and with that stop, Mario Andretti came across the line 25 seconds behind the leader, but he was still coming up to speed at that time. So Al Unser Jr. is back in front, but Al Unser Jr. would need one more pit stop. Now, during the time we were away, it was Arie Luyendyk, Danny Sullivan, and Emerson Fittipaldi who also came in for pit service. The question now is the tactics on this team. What will they do? Will they try and go to the end of the race? I don't think there's any chance in the world they can make it.
Sometimes you take a gamble. We saw Mario take a gamble. He may get success because of that gamble. Sometimes it bites you. Al Jr. elected to stop earlier. We know he has to stop again unless there's a long yellow, but you can't gamble on a long yellow.
Now running on the 54th lap of the 103-lap scheduled distance, so should the rain increase and the visibility worsen, it is, in fact, an official race at this point. Being hotly contested, a very strategic race in the entire series, and these drivers are being so incredibly careful.
The only thing that concerns Al Jr. now, he is leading the race, but if he has to stop again, all they're going to be concerned about, Al Jr. and Rick Gallis's crew, is how much of a cushion he can build up in the lead. Because if he can build up about 30 seconds, he may be able to stop and get a splash of fuel and hold the lead. So tactics and the cushion he can build in the lead will be ultra important right now.
In the pits, they push Guido Dacco's Lola back toward the garage area. His day is apparently done. So now how will this shake out? A most interesting day. The rain, an equalizer to these Indy cars. Normally they'd be developing 750 to almost 850 horsepower, but you can't use anything like that here today. Gary Gerould has an update.
Paul, you were mentioning Emerson Fittipaldi on his stop. There was a failure on one of the impact wrenches on the front left side, and that necessitated a 22-second stop. We were also checking with Emerson. That was at lap 50, so it's very much a gamble as to whether or not they could go 53 without a full course yellow in this second segment. And, of course, that's just part of the gambles here. Emerson hoping it can be a one-stop race. We were also checking to see if there'd been any report from Emerson on driving conditions. Is it getting to the bad to the point where they don't want to race? No comments along those lines when our conversation with Rick Reineman, his crew chief. Paul?
So the calculations still being run in all the pits. Very tactical afternoon as we're watching Indy cars in the mist at Toronto. The leader is Al Unser Jr., followed by Michael and Mario Andretti, then Eddie Cheever and Arie Luyendyk. We'll be back. We're back at the CART Molson Indy in Toronto, Canada. Al Unser Jr. is the leader. Michael Andretti runs in second place with Mario in third. But the best guess is, with 71 laps complete, that Mario Andretti can go the entire distance now without having to stop his number 6, Kmart Havel and Lola, for fuel. On the other hand, the best educated guess would be that both Al Unser Jr. and Michael Andretti will have to stop for fuel. Now, how far ahead of Mario can they get? Can they put enough distance between themselves and third place Mario Andretti to allow them to move in and out of the pits and still maintain their position at the front of the field? And of course, what both those teams are hoping for is a full course yellow so that they can make the stop while the rest of the field is slowed down. So a wonderfully tactical race is underway here at the Molson Toronto race. An excellent day. Arie Luyendyk has been able to charge his way past Eddie Cheever and move into fourth place. Cheever now runs in fifth. Now, with these race cars, Glenn St. James was able to take a look at a most interesting aspect. As high-tech as today's Indy cars are, there are, in fact, parts that cannot be custom built.
The inside of an Indy car is very small, very tight, but each driver gets a custom-designed seat to fit them so that they're comfortable and have the proper support. But an area they can't custom design is the footbox. In fact, the footbox is regulated by CART that all of them are the same size. Now, on my right foot, I have a red shoe, size 10.5, that's Arie Luyendyk's. On my left foot, I have a size 7 shoe, which is Scott Goodyear's. Now, footwork is very important to driving a race car fast. So when you go from full throttle, you're down on the brakes, you heel and toe, back to full throttle again. You've got a lot of movement in there and not a lot of room. If you've got 2 shoes size 10.5, you're very easily in getting them mixed up where you don't know if you've got the throttle, the clutch, or the brake. So even though many of the parts of the car are custom designed to the driver, the footbox isn't. So it's something they just have to get used to.
And one of the problems this year has, in fact, been the relative smaller size of the cars. In fact, Derek Walker at Porsche freely admitted that for the number 4 car there at Teo Fabi and John Andretti, the car was literally designed around him. Emerson Fittipaldi up against the wall. He slid off just a second ago. And Fittipaldi was running in 10th at the time of that incident. Here it is as we take a look at it, Derek Daly.
Here's a slow motion. It's under braking, the end of the straight. Just right there, he gets offline, locks those brakes. Look at those front brakes locked up, and bang, into the wall. Breaks that left front suspension.
A heavy damage to the left front of that car. That ends Emerson Fittipaldi's day. A tough year for the defending PPG IndyCar World Champion as the corner crews try and get that car off of the line as best they can. By the way, if you think it's tough for the drivers in this, imagine what the course marshals are going through, having to stand out in the rain, furthermore stand right next to the edge of the racetrack. That means every time one of these cars goes by, they blast those flagmen with the spray off the back of the car.
This is Al Unser Jr. now closing in to put a lap on Eddie Cheever. Cheever is running in 5th place, so Al Unser Jr. is so dominant here, himself and Michael Andretti, that he's about to lap everybody up to 5th place.
Michael Andretti was whittling away at the lead of this man, Al Unser Jr. He was about 13 seconds back. He brought it down to about 7.5 seconds back, and now that seems to have stabilized. Little Al seems to be aware that Michael is there and has set a pace that keeps Michael back.
Here's a great view of just how difficult it is from the in-car camera, how difficult it is for Al Jr. to follow closely a car ahead. Here's exactly what he sees. Now, earlier we mentioned the red light. Very often it's the red light behind the cars is the first thing you see. Look at Junior wipe his visor there as quickly as he could. But there's Cheever right ahead of him. See how difficult it is to follow?
You ride around this circuit with the leader, Al Unser Jr. The question, this car, how far will he take it? Of course, the further he can take it before he has to stop, assuming that he will, well, then the less fuel that he will actually have to load on board. I'm sure what they're doing as well is calculating how much fuel they will need at a certain point, so they only have to hook up for just that much fuel. Here's Lyn St. James. Lyn?
Yes.
You have an update for us.
An update on the Al Unser Jr. pit report is the fact that they know they have to make a stop, but they don't have a definite strategy because they're hoping a yellow come out, and that's when they'll make their stop under yellow so that they can make up that precious time. So they're having to leave their strategy open depending on how the race goes. Up to you, Paul.
So, Lyn, a very fluid situation in more ways than one. Not only are they trying to stretch as far as they can, but when they make the stop, they'll have to anticipate exactly what they will need to go into the car. At the same time, down at Newman Haas, they seem to have made a decision that they will be bringing Michael Andretti in shortly. He runs in second place, about 5 seconds now behind Al Unser Jr. So he was able to turn on the speed those last laps. Eddie Cheever very wisely comes offline, running in fifth place, and lets the leader, Al Unser Jr., come through. So the Newman Haas organization watching for Michael, as Michael should be rolling into the pit shortly and out of second place. Al Unser Jr. continues out on the track. Mario Andretti is 55 seconds behind the leader, Al Unser Jr. That would not be sufficient time. One would think that if Al had to stop, catch a splash of fuel, and make it out, that he would be able to get the stop done and get the lead. Here's Lyn St. James.
Defending champion overshot his pit. Michael overshot his pit a bit to be able to get the fuel in. They're adding fuel only, no tire change. So it'll be fuel only. It's running at 2.5 gallons per second. 16.2 second stop. And he overshot. That was a critical loss of time by overshooting.
15.2 seconds in and out. Now, you saw what we were talking about. They calculated the flow of the fuel in the hose, and when they had that fuel run, one of the crew members reached out with a stick and tapped the refueler on the back so that they could back out of it.
Remember, Al Unser Jr., our leader, is 55 seconds ahead of Mario. We don't think Mario has to stop, but 55 seconds is enough to stop, take a splash of fuel, and keep the lead.
So the race will be played in the pits, and the decisions will be made by Rick Gallus, Gallus-Craco Racing, but whether or not they can keep Al Unser Jr. out in front. 76 laps are now complete. We'll be back. And Mario Andretti spins it quickly off the course, taps the wall. Derek Daly.
Here's the replay. This is where we've seen all the action earlier on today. Under braking, he turns in. He's on the right line right here. But now the car gets loose. Now it begins to get loose. Look at that car come around. Maybe a bit too much power on. And he backs it into the wall. He actually breaks that rear wing. Backing into the wall. Watch that rear wing. Just there breaks the rear wing.
Boy, was at a point in which he certainly didn't want to get the back in the wall and did everything he could to keep it away. Al Unser Jr.'s crew has come over the wall, anticipating a pit stop by the leader of the race. This changed things dramatically. There is Al Unser Jr.'s crew waiting for his car to come in. The question I have to ask, if they can get this car back under power, and he's got it under power now, if he's done no suspension damage, would you just leave the wing alone and try and run, Derek?
No, I think he would have to come in and have that wing repaired. Let's go down to Lyn St. James.
Al Unser Jr. is making his critical pit stop. They're only going to add fuel, no other adjustment. Everyone is watching very carefully to make sure they get just enough fuel and not an unnecessary amount. 9.7 second stop.
So fuel only for Al Unser Jr. Remember, that is the crew that was involved in the fire at Cleveland. They are all back in action. In fact, they were back in action a week ago. So Al Unser Jr. makes his stop in and out of the pits. We'll be back with more right after this. We're back at Toronto. Arie Luyendyk tangling with Raoul Boesel, both of them up toward the wall. And Luyendyk trying to signal someone to give him a start. Al Unser Jr., the leader of the race after his pit stops, moves up and around the accident. Luyendyk was running in 3rd place. Boesel was running in 7th at the time they tangled.
Coming through turn 9, Boesel lost it right in front of Luyendyk. Luyendyk tried to go around the outside, and Boesel backed into him and took Luyendyk straight into the wall.
Well, with his stop, Al Unser Jr. was able to keep the lead. Michael Andretti is in 2nd place. Eddie Cheever runs in 3rd. Luyendyk was up in the top position, but of course is falling steadily backwards as the rest of the field strings their way past. And Danny Sullivan has managed to move up into 4th place. Randy Lewis leaves just 1 lane to go. Now Mario Andretti, after his contact, took it into the pits. It looked, Eric, like all they did was shake the rear wing and make sure it was stable and send him back out.
They did. They had a good look at the mounting points, realized that it wasn't broken, or they hoped it wasn't broken. They decided to risk it to send him back out without a rear wing change. However, the wing is damaged.
But they have shown a black flag to Mario Andretti as he rolls into the pits now. And it is a stop-and-go penalty, though as yet CART has not indicated what that penalty may be for. Let's go to the pits. Here is Gary Gerould.
And Eddie Cheever comes in for his final stop, and again he wipes furiously on the visor trying to clear the visibility. He's now in 3rd place, or was when he came in to make this stop, because of the unfortunate circumstances for Luyendyk and Andretti. So this tableau changing constantly. They top off with the fuel. He's off the jacks. A 3rd place finisher in Detroit, hoping that he can get on the podium again today here in Toronto, Paul.
Eddie Cheever, really an excellent run today, showing that he certainly has the prowess here in the Indy cars. He's looking very good as the officials and the safety teams now trying to get Boesel and Luyendyk's car clear of the course. The leader is still Al Unser Jr. He is being challenged only by Michael Andretti, who is 18 seconds back. Eddie Cheever runs in 3rd, then Danny Sullivan and Arie Luyendyk, but Luyendyk will continue to fall down that order. 82 laps are complete. We'll be back. We're back at Toronto. This is one of the CART officials, Billy Camphausen, who has been communicating back and forth on both his radio to other officials. Wally Dallenbach, the chief steward, he just tried to use one of the hardwire landlines that are here, and he has been in the Gallus pits talking with the Gallus team, and Nick Finoro, the starter, at the starter stand. You see he's got the white flag. In this case, it would indicate 1 more lap to go, and he gives it to the leader of the race. They're going to flag this one early. Lap 91 is complete for Al Unser Jr. Michael Andretti is in no position to contest him at this point, nor for that matter would he have necessarily been going to the end of the race. So the flag goes out, the white flag for Al Unser Jr. Michael Andretti runs in 2nd place.
The rain is coming down much, much heavier. There is standing water now on the racetrack, and the visibility is way, way too low for this to continue as a safe situation.
Al Unser Jr. working his way now around on the final lap of this race. White flag comes out for Al and for the rest of the field. They will be bringing this race to a stop 9 laps early. Michael Andretti was not in a view to contest that position. John Andretti lies just ahead of Michael on the course itself. And so I think very wisely, as the visibility continued to fall here and water began to pool in some sections, the officials talked with the teams and they decided it was prudent to flag just a little bit early. Terrible visibility you see from the onboard camera. Now moving through the final corners, Al Unser Jr. working his way around and sees the checkered flag ahead, and Al Unser Jr. has won here in Toronto. Al Unser Jr. scores the win. 2nd place will be Michael Andretti as they decide the rain is just too much and they will bring the race to a halt early.
It really was a good decision because there was nothing to be gained, we could see. The race had settled down. Al Unser Jr. was very solidly in that lead position. Eddie Cheever just came through and put his hand in the air. Danny Sullivan just came through. Danny Sullivan in 4th place. Cheever delighted with his 3rd place position. And Michael Andretti finishes 2nd.
The race is run, and Al Unser Jr. picks up the win. Continues on a very solid year for him in what has been a very difficult race through the afternoon. It was a light sprinkle when it started, but enough of a race in the rain for everyone to decide the rain tires would be appropriate. And that was an excellent judgment by everybody, because the rain got heavier and heavier and heavier throughout the afternoon. And finally, very wisely, with a consultation of the teams, Chief Steward Wally Dallenbach decided, let us stop this race a little bit early. It was a good judgment because Michael was not in any position to catch him. I think they waited a few laps to decide whether or not they would get within a window where Michael might close. Michael wasn't closing, and so they decided, let's get this race over with. Let's get the crowd out of the rain. We'll call it a day. It makes for a most interesting point scenario, though, as we calculated unofficially. Al Unser Jr. will have now 106 PPG points, Michael Andretti 104, and Rick Mears 102. We'll keep our calculations as CART takes a look at the final order and posts the official order of standing. But now, on a very wet day here at Toronto, Al Unser Jr.'s crew moves down so they can greet his driver as the winner here at the Molson Indy in Toronto. The race has been run. Al Unser Jr. picks up yet another victory this year. We'll be back to talk with him right after this. Well, they're great race fans. They finally leave the stands as Al Unser Jr. begins to celebrate his 10th win on a temporary circuit, more than any other man. And this Winner's Circle interview is brought to you by Road Handler Treadlock Radials at Sears. Tough tires you can trust. Here's Gary Gerould.
And Paul, of course, in victory lane, hugs and congratulations. A very damp, a very wet Al Unser Jr. savoring win number 3 of the season. How many close calls for you today, young man?
Well, there was more than I could count, I tell you. You know, I just, it was a real careful race, and we had to be really careful with it. And we just, you know, the guys did a great job preparing the car, and that was that. I want to thank Cole Selva back home for preparing this baby, and it's this car's first win, so we're happy.
How many chances did you have to take, particularly early, when you were very aggressive coming through traffic and then getting the lead from the Andrettis?
Well, I really didn't take a whole lot of chances because it's too early, and you know, I just thought that we'd just be aggressive, and really I wanted Michael to break trail, and he started making a few mistakes, and I was able to get by him, and I went, gosh, I really don't want to lead this thing, but we were fortunate. You know, the car was working great, the guys did great stops, and it was just a beautiful day.
Coming back after the problems at Cleveland with the fire and the crew and getting organized, competing at the Meadowlands last week, and now a victory in the rain. It's a terrific comeback, and it puts you right back in this championship hunt.
Well, we needed this win really bad to get back into the hunt of the championship, and you know, I just want to thank Valvoline and Toshiba and Gallus Craco. I tell you, you know, without these people, we just couldn't do it. So
terrific job under really tough conditions.
Thank you.
Paul?
Well, Unser Jr. takes the win despite the rain. He is very happy, but you can see it's pretty wet down there. A lot of umbrellas up. Here are the final standings. Al Unser Jr. followed by Michael, then Eddie Cheever with a spectacular run and finish. Danny Sullivan started on the pole, dropped back, then fought his way up. Arie Luyendyk finishes in 5th, and I'm sure the team's going to be happy about that. We take a look, Derek Daly, down through the rest of the field. Most unusual day, though.
A most unusual day, but a perfect way for Al Unser Jr. to celebrate the signing of his new 3-year contract to stay with the Gallus Craco team.
So in the rain at Toronto, been a very difficult afternoon for officials and crews alike, but it also means that 3 very hard weeks on the road come to an end. They now have some time to go back to their shops, 2 weeks to prepare for the Michigan 500, and they need those 2 weeks because Michigan is one very tough race. We'll be back with more from Toronto right after this. Well, the race is over, though a lot of the fans are still sticking around. The race shortened because of rain. I think a pretty good judgment by the officials. Lynn St. James is right now with one of these kart officials, Billy Camphausen. Lynn?
That's right, Paul.
I'm going to get behind
Billy,
you.
this track is known to drain well, and so it went for quite a distance, but you did stop it early. What was your decision? Why did you do that?
Well, Lynn, the decision was made by the chief steward, but the information was comprised from the third place, the second place, the driver representative, and the lead car. We did not want to stop the race, but it became to a point where the drivers wanted to continue, to a point that they could not see any longer, and they wanted a decision quickly, and race control made that decision. I think it was a wise decision to stop the race.
So really, driver safety was of the utmost importance here.
Absolutely. It became a point where the drivers could no longer see when they started to close up.
That was the decision. Back to you, Paul.
All right, I think an excellent decision as well. Because look at this, despite the rain, some of the folks are going to hang on and watch the end of the ceremonies here, which do continue on. There is Rick Gallus and Maury Cranes up on the stage. And boy, I'm going to tell you, they are all soaked. The points now. These are official. As a result of this run, Al Unser Jr. moves to the points lead, so that great battle continues. Michael Andretti stays in his second place position. Rick Mears drops from the lead down to third, and then Fittipaldi and Rahal. But boy, those top four, Derek Daly, that's making a great points fight throughout the year. And now we're going to a super speedway.
That's right. Nobody really has exerted themselves as being a true front runner here. We've had great runs by Michael Andretti. He almost threatened to run away. Al Unser Jr. has hung on. Rick Mears, we mentioned him earlier on, an oval track specialist, but look how close he is coming off the end of the road trip. So we have probably the closest points battle that we've seen in IndyCar racing for many years.
And just beyond the midpoint in the season, so we've got plenty of action. And of course, you'll see this entire thing wrap up here on ESPN as we take it to the end of the season. Eddie Cheever on the left, and we've talked about how tight he is in his car. Look at his knees, the pads that he has to wear, Derek.
That's right. You would think Eddie Cheever just finished and is undressing from a football game. They are knee pads that he uses to try and stop the steering rack on the Lola from banging and bruising his shins badly enough to draw blood. So Eddie Cheever protecting himself from this very small cockpit in the new 1990 Lola.
I think Michael Andretti and Al Unser are both helping Eddie Cheever through the ceremonies. They've been up there before. Eddie's only been up once, and they're telling him the routine that you have to go through to satisfy all of the special needs here on the winner's podium, and they make a really excellent job out of the final ceremonies here, and much of the crowd has decided to stay in. But we've seen a most interesting race. It had a disjointed feel to it, but I'm sure that disjointed feel is what drove the crews here. They had a difficult day.
Well, that's right. So much action all through the event. We saw Mario be the biggest threat for victory here by stopping so late. He didn't have to make a second stop. Suddenly, his race took a turn for the worse. Then we saw Leyendijk chase down Cheever very, very aggressively, and suddenly his third place disappeared when Raoul Boesel took him into the wall. So we're seeing the finish here of the people who escaped all the problems of the day and did the best overall job.
So Al Unser Jr. with a spectacular ride, truly only in fact challenged by Mario Andretti. Mario was in a wonderful tactical position until just a slight pressure, perhaps less than a few grams on the brake pedal, sent him into the wall and gave the race to Al Unser Jr. Congratulations to Little Al. This is Paul Page for Derek Daly, Lynn St. James, and Gary Gerould. So long from a very wet exhibition place in Toronto, Canada.